Good evening. The June 15, 2023 meeting of the Woodbridge Township Board of Education will now come to order. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Bourdain.
Here.
Mr. Delapetro.
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Here.
Mr. Velez.
Here.
And Mr. Molnar.
Here. Mr. Secretary, as required by the Sunshine Law, please read the notice of open meetings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted as follows. On January 11th, 2023, emailed to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Municipal Clerk's Office, posted in Ross Street School Number 11 and the Board of Education Administration Building, also published on the school district website.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Delapetro, please read the closed session statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board must go into closed session in order to discuss subjects exempted from the public portion of our meeting. The discussions to be held in closed session will be regarding personnel matters, and the board will receive attorney-client advice. In addition, the board will discuss negotiations with the WTEA related to a sidebar agreement. Any information regarding the closed session discussion will be released to the public when the reasons for discussing these matters in closed session no longer exist.
Thank you, Mr. Delapetro. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Treebwasser. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The board will now retire to closed session. Please rise for a salute to the flag and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
So motioned.
Do I have a second?
Second.
With the motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will reconvene. I'd like to thank the public for their patience. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Bourdain.
Here.
Mr. Delapetro.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Ms. Perez.
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Here.
Mr. Velez.
Here.
And Mr. Molnar.
Here. Will someone make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings?
So motion?
I have a motion by Ms. Bourdain. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Secretary, please state for the record any notice of bids received.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the 2023-24 school year, we opened the following bids. On May 25th, 2023, IFB 24-03A, Physical Education Supplies. On June 13th, 2023, IFB 24-08, Vending Machines.
Thank you. Dr. Massimino, please state for the record the superintendent's reports for the month of May 2023.
Mr. President, I submit the student registers and fire drill report, suspension reports for elementary and secondary schools, bomb threat reports, and reports of the attendance officers.
Thank you. Dr. Massimino, please introduce our student representative, Roshini Anaja.
Roshni Anija has many strengths, and one is obvious: her ability to achieve academic excellence. Currently ranked number 7 in her class with a slew of honors and AP courses and all A's on her transcript. Roshni plays a vital role in the arts at JFK through marching band, jazz machine, wind ensemble, and orchestra for the school plays. Her talent for music led her to be the clarinet section leader for the marching band and to be accepted into district honors band. Roshni is also a member of the academic team, National Honor Society, and National English Honor Society. Some additional activities highlight her leadership skills: senior class vice president, tennis team captain, and robotics club electrical team captain. She's also very active outside of school. Roshni is an avid volunteer. She found a nonprofit organization called Color a Smile that distributes drawings to anyone who might need some cheer, such as a senior citizen, military members, etc. She has also made phone calls on behalf of the Democratic Party to aid in election efforts. To date, Roshni has accumulated about 200 volunteer hours over the course of her high school career. She would like to pursue a major and career in political science. Roshni secured a coveted internship with Congressman Frank Pallone through the New Jersey Leadership Program. Her Her passion for helping others through political channels also inspired her to found a community chapter of High School Democrats of America. Through this venue, she was able to host a town hall with the mayor, a vaccine drive for the elderly South Asian community, a food drive, and a phone bank workshop. Roshni is an excellent student and an even better person. She has a clear sense of direction and purpose, which will serve her well as she attends the prestigious University of Pennsylvania this fall. Welcome.
Thank you. So the activities for school number 1 are the students and staff collected and donated over 400 boxes of cereal to We Feed America. Their chorus and band members performed their spring concert at Woodbridge Middle School. The track team came in first place this year and they celebrated with a pizza party. Woodbridge High School class of 2023 visited their school for a farewell clap out in the hallways. This month's Community of Caring honored students that set examples of a hero. Police Week was celebrated by wearing their police shirts, and some officers came to recess with the students. Grades 4 and 5 students were welcomed to the National Honor Society. Grade 5 went on a class trip to the Woodbridge Community Center to roller skate. Kindergarten and Grade 1 celebrated Fun Day with the Lizard Man and some of his animal friends. Students and staff wore their favorite Star Wars shirts to celebrate on May 4th. The activity list for School 19 is the Family Math ran for 4 weeks in May for their 3rd graders. The PTO and PBSIS joined together to have their 2nd annual color run. The Student Council had a Wear a Hat fundraiser for the Relay for Life. On June 1st, they celebrated their 1st grade students reading. Asian Pacific Islander Month was celebrated with community members showcasing their culture to their kindergarten students. For School 29, the Student Council has initiated many charitable projects this year. A Thanksgiving bingo donation of $717 was made to St. Cecilia's Food Pantry. 8 bags of toys were collected for Toys for Tots. Cupid cards were sold and a donation of $616 was made to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Spirit Days for global giving towards Turkey and Syria earthquake relief. The activity list for Ford's Middle School is a group of 8th grade students won 2nd place in the state in a $500 savings bond from the eCyber Mission virtual STEM competition. Congratulations to Jenna Carvalho, Juana Rahan, Abigail Sizzler, and Nicole Vargas Salcedo. The girls' volleyball team made it to the championship game to be held at Woodbridge High School on June 2nd. The boys' cross-country team had a very successful undefeated season. The World Language Club donated $400 to Autism Acceptance. 8th graders Harsimir Kaur, Juana Rahan, and Abigail Sizzler attended the Central Jersey Music Educators Association Middle School Honors Band at Monroe Township Middle School. The choir, chorale, and showstoppers have collaborated with band, dance, and art to put on their first spring performing arts showcase. Cameron Dunlop was selected as the winning recipient for the Social Studies Civics writing piece. Cameron got to read his writing at the Barron Arts Center, in which the topic was about Woodbridge and World War I. Congratulations to the 3 poets winners of the evening with Young Poets, Aaliyah Wilson, Ariana Bardwaj, and Janae Bynum. And finally, for John F. Kennedy Memorial High School, they held a successful voter registration drive with over 60 students registering to vote in conjunction with the League of Women Voters. The National Honor Society held a successful blood drive in conjunction with Robert Wood Johnson. 50 students were inducted into the National English Honor Society. On May 18th, they held their first Asian American and Pacific Islander cultural event. On May 24th, they held their Senior Scholarship Award Night, where nearly 100 members of the JFK class of 2023 were honored with scholarships. On May 25th, they held their wellness fair during lunch periods. Students from JFK teamed up with students from Woodbridge Middle School to present their Narrative 4 storytelling project at the District DI Showcase. Our school equity team also presented at the Central Jersey Consortium for Excellence in Equity at Monmouth University. Freshman golfer Priyam Nayak won the GMC Golf Tournament. Our academic challenge team competed in nationals held in Chicago, Illinois. JFK boys and girls soccer volunteered their time to clean up Mayor Frank Pelsman Park. And finally, Ashrith Pala and Shreya Singh qualified for and competed in American Regions Mathematics League at Penn State University.
Thank you, Roshni, for your detailed report. You are welcome to join us this evening, but if you have more important things that have to be done, we totally understand.
No worries. I'll join you guys this evening, but I'll just move to the audience. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, you can sit there. You can sit there. You're part of us. You're in this with us tonight.
Okay, I'll see you.
Once you sit in that chair, you're in there with us. The board would also like to recognize Vice President Mr. Carrasio from JFK for taking time out of his schedule to be here tonight. Thank you. I think that means you have to stay too. The Woodbridge Township Board of Education welcomes and encourages active, productive, and respectful participation by members of the public and seeks to protect the First Amendment rights of those who engage in this exercise of free speech at this Board of Education meeting. Members of the public are requested to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of those whose legal rights may be impacted. The public is now invited to speak regarding the agendas being presented this evening. When you come to the microphone, please provide your name and the section of the township in which you reside, along with the specific agenda item number you wish to discuss. As per Regulation 1100D, comments must be limited to no more than 5 minutes. No response will be given until you had your opportunity to speak. We'll now open up for discussion for tonight's agenda items.
Good evening, Tom Maris, Forest, New Jersey. I'd like to compliment the young lady on her performance. Excellent. Best of luck in life. I would like to speak to the athletics and extracurricular agenda. Points 1, 2, and 3 can be taken together. And I noticed that each of the schools is now members of the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association to do interschool athletics. I'd like to know, does that organization allow transgenders to compete, if you know?
Athletics agenda. What item was that again, Mr. Maris?
1, 2, and 3. Each is talking about a different school, but at the end, they're all talking about the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association to participate in approved interschool athletic programs.
Mr. Bush?
Is that all of your questions on the agenda, sir?
Again, does that association support transgender competition?
Is that your only question? Because we'll answer after you're
Okay.
done.
And that was, well, I was lumped those three together. And my next is really just a comment, not so much a question, but I know at point 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, we are clearly identifying that we still hold that we have male and female teams, and that we also give meritocracies to 10 of the top girls in the competition and 10 of the top boys. So I guess that's not a dead issue anymore. We still can identify boys and girls, and we can recognize excellence in performance without giving everybody a trophy. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Bush, would you like to provide the answer?
I mean, as a state, quasi-state agency, the NJSIAA does not discriminate against anyone. And so, but there are no, I'll just say that the NJSIAA does not discriminate. So to answer your question, you said, do they support NJ? I mean, I can't speak for the NJSIAA, but the
Well, since
NJSIAA.
our students are going into it, I'm concerned, would they be competing, any of our boys or girls, against transgenders
They have a policy
going into that, if we don't do it in our own schools?
Right. The NJSIAA has a policy that they've had in effect for a number of years that addresses transgender students, and that's all I can say. You could read the policy.
So if
I'm
they
sure
didn't
online.
find it in our school, my question
Yeah,
is, might they find it there?
If you type NJSIAA
Okay.
and transgender in a Google search, I'm sure you'll find plenty of information on the policy that they've had for a number of years.
And we would allow our kids to compete against transgenders because of that association?
No, I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Nobody else on the agendas? Seeing none, superintendent's agenda, Dr. Massimino.
Mr. President, I have 39 items to present to the board tonight.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's agenda?
motion.
Motion by Mr. Treebosser. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Mr. President, I abstain on item number 38 in the name of Rutgers University. Yes to all other items.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Policy and Planning Agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Policy and Planning Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, presents the following 5 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Ms. Anderson. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
And Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Curriculum Agenda, Mr. Treebwasser.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Curriculum Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 12 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you, Mr. Treebwasser. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
No.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Finance and Insurance, Mr. Treebwasser.
Thank you, Mr. Molnar. The Finance and Insurance Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator, Board Secretary, presents the following 16 items. On item 11, there is a typographical error. It should be $228,800, which is actually an 11.3% decrease from last year, instead of what's listed there. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. With the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Harris. Are there any comments from the board? Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Technology Agenda, Ms. Bourdain.
The Technology Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 9 items. I move for the foregoing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Perez. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
And Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Athletics and Extracurricular, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Athletics and Extracurricular Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 9 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Perez. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Molnar?
Mr. Harris?
I had a question, and I know Dr. Massimino stepped out of the room. Perhaps yourself or Mr. Wolferman can answer it. Yesterday, Mr. Molnar, as you know, a former colleague of yours was struck by lightning on our district property. If I'm not mistaken, many of the town's parks and athletic fields have installed a lightning warning detection system. Is that common throughout our entire school district? Are all grounds covered by that, or is that just some select properties?
Yeah, no, all our schools have the lightning detection siren stations at all our athletic fields.
Okay.
That one field we didn't have one at because that soccer field was never really used. When the township took over the youth soccer program, we started using that as a practice field.
Okay.
But at Kennedy, right behind Islam Middle School, the way the property goes, there is a siren station in between the football field and baseball field. And then there's one on the other side of the JFK High School by the girls' softball field.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that one field didn't have one, but for the most part, every athletic field we have, or
Okay.
park, the pools, the skate parks, they
Got it.
have a lightning siren station.
Is that a shared service between the township and the school district, or did the township do that sort of as a public safety,
No, it
idea?
was a shared service
Shared
between
service,
the
okay.
Board of Education and the Township
Okay,
of
all
Woodbridge.
right, great. Dr. Massimino, I know you just walked back in the room here. I suspect you heard most of the comments. Mr. Wolferman, is it possible if we could just do I hate to ask for this, like an audit, just to see if we have any gaps in our system here, should something for future purposes, of course. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Buildings and Grounds agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Business Administrator, recommend 2 items. I move the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Perez. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser,
Yes.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
and Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Transportation agenda, Mr. Delapetro.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Transportation Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following 4 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. With the motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Yeah.
Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser,
Yes.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
and Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Cafeteria agenda, Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Cafeteria Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following 3 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. With the motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Anderson. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Equity Commission agenda, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Equity Commission Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, present the following 2 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. With the motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Perez. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms.
Excuse me.
Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser,
Yes.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
and Mr. Molnar.
Yes. Personnel agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Molnar. The Personnel Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, present the following 64 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Treebwasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. President?
Mr. Harris?
On our agenda, item number 3, we have 29 retirees, and I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I think we all would concur with a hearty thank you to those 29 retirees for your service and your dedication to our school district, our students, and our families. We wish you well on your retirement. Enjoy. Every day is now Saturday, so go and enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Molnar.
Thank you. Any other comments on personnel? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser,
I will be abstaining on the name Valerie Henderson on item 18 and 41. I will be abstaining in the name of Dr. Maria Gencarelli on item 54 and Mr. Paul Pastorino on item 55. Yes on all other items.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
and Mr. Molnar.
On item number 40, I'll be abstaining on the name Charlie Molnar. Yes on all other items. Negotiations agenda, Mr. Velez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Board of Education Committee for Negotiations with the WTEA present the following 1 item, and I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Have a motion by Mr. Velez. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser,
I abstain.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
and Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar, do you have any abstentions?
No? Okay, Mr. Bush, do you have any recommendations this evening?
I actually do tonight, Mr. President. I'd like to ask that there be a motion and a second on the following resolution, that the Board of Education hereby denies WTEA grievance A-23-03. We would need a motion, a second, and just a voice vote. You don't even need a roll call.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Perez. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose?
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
I abstain.
There's 2 abstentions.
Okay.
For the record, 2 abstentions, Ms. Bourdain and Mr. Harris. Mr. Wolferman, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any old business that should be brought before the attention of the board? Is there any new business?
Mr. President?
Ms. Anderson?
Yes, I have an announcement. On Saturday, June 17th, WONOC will present a Juneteenth celebration. It's from 1 to 6 p.m. at Woodbridge High School on the concert grounds. There will be live entertainment, food, and vendors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Are there any other new business? Seeing none, we will now open up the meeting to the public comment. If you wish to say something, please come to the microphone, provide your name and the section of the township in which you reside. Again, members of the public are requested to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of those whose legal rights may be impacted. Please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes in accordance with Regulation 1100D. No response will be given until you fully completed your comments, as not to interrupt your 5 minutes, your opportunity to speak.
Paul Lund, Hope Lawn. Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't usually broadcast this. I'm a little bit shy to admit it, but I have a PhD. The only reason I bring it up is I intend to bring expert testimony. And my public high school diploma, my PhD, comes from Woodbridge High, interestingly enough. I bring up expert testimony for a reason. We've heard about experts who are making decisions concerning children's transition or their psychological well-being. I remember hearing that there were experts with the pandemic response. One prominent, Dr. Anthony Fauci, was against masks until he was for them. By the time he was done, he was recommending triple masking. I don't know if you guys remember that. There were experts from the American Federation of Teachers, name of Randy Weingarten. Randy Weingarten had undue influence on the CDC, and in the states that were so inclined, helped extend a lockdown that should have been a few months into a couple years. We know now that there was a devastating learning loss during that period of time. There's experts at the border in charge of our border security, named Kamala Harris, and we're getting record numbers of fentanyl across that border, 100,000 people dying per year. So you can see why we'd be a little skeptical about experts. There was an expert in the 1950s named John Money. He's the one who coined the term gender, which is such a hot-button issue these days. John Money was also very for and open to the idea of pedophilia. I'm going to give you a quote from John Money. If I were to see the case of a boy aged 10 or 11 who's intensely erotically attracted toward a man in his 20s or 30s, if the relationship is totally mutual and the bonding is genuinely totally natural, then I would not call it pathological in any way. That kind of attitude is infusing, I think, the sex education. That nothing, they're trying to destigmatize everything, normalize everything. And in a way, because they're reducing sex to an act of self-gratification, nothing more than a physical act, it's taking, I think, and reducing it to something base, something prurient. Now, the state of New Jersey has obscenity laws, and they use the term prurient, which is giving undue attention and creating undue interest in sexual matters. We've got sex ed pushing down by grade 2, which means all the way down to kindergarten. It could be said that you are fostering the prurient interest. Now, they're too young at that age to understand what you're trying to teach them. But the more seeds you plant, the more exposure they get, the more desensitized these children are, the more danger it is for them growing up. If you doubt the danger of exposing children to things like Lawn Boy and some of the other things masquerading as literature in school libraries today, Lawn Boy, Gender Queer, the graphic novel, which is readily available in Woodbridge Township and can be taken out for someone with a 12-year-old can take it out with an adult library card, which they're happy to grant. I was in Roxbury Township on Monday. 50 parents were there to speak out. Well, not just parents. There were also advocates for sexualizing the children. 50 speaking to this issue. 3 minutes apiece, we're talking about a few hours' time. Before that, there were 80 going to Roxbury Township. If you think that this is indicative of all the people who are outraged by what's going on, you're sadly mistaken. Many parents either don't understand the intensity with which the ideologies, both on the anti-racism side, which I will speak to at another meeting, and on the gender queer theory side. If you don't think that there's some interest being aroused in them as to what's going on, you're mistaken. If you don't think that's going to be an awakening giant of moms and grandmas and concerned citizens that's going to overtake this board, you're mistaken. And if you don't think there will be consequences come September, or excuse me, November, when 3 of your seats are up, you're going to be mistaken there too, because we're going to have as many parental rights rallies as we can, both online and again at the Woodbridge Township Municipal Building, since conveniently enough, we can't do it at the Elks Club. So I want to thank you for your time. I just want to give you a little bit of a prognostication that your policies are dangerous to the children. You're endangering their welfare. And just like the state steps in, when a parent endangers the welfare of a child, watch what the parents do when the state and you, the pawns of the state, endanger the welfare of children.
Mr. Lund, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Lisa Santangelo from Reddington Township.
I'm sorry, where'd you say you're from?
Reddington Township?
Reddington, okay.
Yeah. On March 9th, I raised concerns to this board regarding the transgender student policy. I sent a follow-up email on March 10th with supporting documentation. I received no response. Did any of you even read it? Show of hands. Anyone read that?
We're not going to poll the board.
Okay. Tonight, I would like to address statements that this board has recently made. Mr. Bush, you stated and continue to state that your district is in compliance with the law as it relates to this policy. However, the law states nothing about excluding parental consent. I have the law with me if you'd like to see it. The law does not advise the school district to exclude parental consent. The State Board of Ed provided recommended guidelines, which you've decided to adopt in full. A guideline does not have the effect of law. Every school has a choice, and you chose to exclude parents. There are over 12 schools in New Jersey that include parents, and that number is growing. I've personally spoken with Mr. Nicastro of Strauss-Esme, and he confirmed that these guidelines are not a law or a mandate and that each school has a choice. So the question to you is, why did this board choose to exclude parents? The main argument is always that parents may reject or eject their child from the home. The problem with this argument is that both the United States and New Jersey Supreme Courts have held that parents have a fundamental constitutional right to raise their children. I will email you the case law that supports this statement. When you decide to exclude parental consent regarding a minor, you are infringing on our rights as parents. Although the state also has a responsibility to protect the welfare of children, it is equally paramount to preserve and strengthen family life, which the courts have recognized. Due process is essential, which this policy does not support. We hear of teachers and staff being arrested, charged, and convicted of sexual child abuse on an almost weekly basis throughout New Jersey. Does this mean that we assume all teachers and staff are harming children? Or should we afford them the same legal due process that all individuals are given, which should include parents too? It is the court's responsibility to utilize an application of the best interest of the child standard only after a formal complaint has been filed against a parent. So with all due respect, Mr. Bush, there is no law to comply with excluding parental consent. And just because you continue to repeat your statement does not make it true. This policy also infringes on parents' religious freedoms and our children's reproductive rights as it puts them on the path to sterilization. I've already sent you all the documentation that shows how puberty blockers have serious side effects, including sterilization and other long-term effects. The next point is with regard to gender, which seems to be used now interchangeably with sex. There are only two biological sexes, male and female, and it is not assigned at birth. It is designated at conception. This is a proven, observable fact. If something has changed, please share these new biological facts with us. Changing your gender or removing or adding body parts does not change one's chromosomes in biology. This policy supports something that is not factual, and it is not your responsibility, especially since you are not affording parents to do their job to give their minors informed consent. Detransitioners say if they knew then what they know now, they would have never gone down this road because it does not resolve gender dysphoria and, in fact, increased their feelings of suicide. As long as these testimonies and facts exist, you cannot fall on your own or the state's understanding. My final point regarding the curriculum is when this board states that we teach to the state curriculum as it relates to gender, Ms. McMillan, Acting Commissioner of the State Department of Education, on April 14th, stated that curriculum is not mandated and schools have the discretion to teach how they see fit. I've also brought this memo as well if you'd like to see it, which is why many schools declined to teach to this curriculum and others decided to teach the gender piece on the last day of school to limit exposure. It also states that the curriculum must include medically accurate and age-appropriate information. So when you teach there are more than two sexes, genders, and that sex is assigned at birth, then you're teaching inaccurate information, and there are no comprehensive sex ed studies that show that any of this benefits children. Parental consent should be added back to the transgender student policy. You do have discretion with the curriculum, and all medically and biologically inaccurate information should be eliminated. This board needs to be responsible to the parents and put the children and parents' best interests first. When questioned, the board should not state we have no choice, the state has mandates. As I mentioned earlier, this is not true. The board needs to have the courage to stand up to special interests that want to limit a parent's fundamental rights to make decisions for their own children. The Hanover Township School is one of the dozen schools that does not exclude parental rights. As you know, they are being sued right now by the state attorney general, but they are fighting for parental rights. I remind you that you represent the parents and community, not the state.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds to finish your statement.
If we stand together in the truth and what is best for our children, we will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Trumpator, Ward 1, Woodbridge. I'm here as a senior citizen, a grandfather of 6, and a father of 3 who are all mature. The youngest is 40. And I'm here to say that you take my money for taxes every month, and you, according to what I'm understanding in your curriculum, are exciting pedophilia, trying to normalize pedophilia. In fact, I thought I heard a statement from one of our speakers when they said that teachers would go against a student. I thought I heard somebody up there say, maybe did the student acquiesce, give permission? A student can't give permission under the age of 18, unless our state legislature is dyslexic. They say the student will get medical attention for HIV, just in case you call a doctor, he can start hormone therapy. When he's 13, can't get a tattoo until he's 18. However, in NJ SA 2A53-15, liability of a parent or guardian for willful destruction of property by infant under 18. Legally, this here, in this particular statute, they're infants. But in your curriculum, they're adults. Now, how does that work? There is no way that a 13-year-old can make a decision that's going to affect the rest of his or her life. That is insane. How many people have changed their majors when they get to college? Twice, sometimes 3 times. It is insane to think that they are going to do something as permanent. You won't let them get a tattoo. but you'll let them start hormone therapy that can't be reversed? In my profession, the street goes by the motto, buy on a rumor and sell on the news. Well, a rumor about 8 or 9 months ago was that the superintendents, the teachers' unions were all going to make a lot of money because the medical profession, the pharmaceuticals, were all going to take care of them because there's a lot of money in a burgeoning new market, child sex change. See, I'm a fundamental analyst. I don't look at the advertisements. I want to know about the memo that got hidden in the drawer. That's where I get my information. I want to know what they got in the burn bag. And I can tell you right now, this board may have a problem because there's mayors that don't agree with this.
Craig Schubert, I'm the mayor of this city. It has come to my attention that your educators are distributing essentially what is child pornography in the classroom. I've spoken to a judge this evening. She's already confirmed that. So I'm going to give you a simple choice. You either choose to resign from this Board of Education, or you will be charged. Thank you.
We have to stop it. In an article written on the 9th of January this year, Rebecca Thies reported that the Office of the Inspector General in Chicago was investigating 772 teachers for allegedly raping, sexually assaulting, or grooming students. They were able to get rid of half of those cases, but the others stuck around. They were taking trips to Las Vegas, Ibiza, London, and the Bahamas for sexual purposes. Then, Mr. Lin, that escaped China, informed us on television that this is exactly what Mao did. Separated the kids from the parents, confused them, and had them do their little pedophilia situation. This isn't going to be acceptable. And would there be lawsuits? Yes. Chloe's suing right now. At 15, she removed her breasts because she thought she was going to be a boy. Well, now she's a mom, and she's suing the school, the teachers, the doctors, the hospital, everybody. You think it's not going to happen to you? I'm not alone here. I'm the chairman of Ward 1. I'm a county committee man in this town. I hear from a lot of citizens.
Mr. Tremador, your time's up. Your 5 minutes is up.
I'm not the only one who's time. Oh, thank you, sir. Voluntario Presidio, Deus Volt.
I would like to thank you for playing that recording because you did play it at a council meeting one night in TV 35. I was watching it and I couldn't hear what they actually said, so thank you for playing that recording.
John Vatari, Woodbridge, 580 Amber Avenue. You know, I'm in this town over almost 60 years. You know, it's sad, you know, a lot of people in the business all those years, most of my life. It's sad how things changed. It's sad when a 40-year-old kid comes from school, Woodbridge schools, before grade, and asks what's a puberty. People find out, naturally, we all did. Why do we do those things? We do those things because you get money for it. But there's going to be confusion among the kids. The kids come from school, as mom, and my boy or girl. Those questions my kids never asked. We know that they were born, they're boys, or they were girls. You're pretty boy, you're good looking, pretty girl, you're good looking, you dress nice, you're handsome, you this and that. You're confusing the children. They're going to find what they are, and mostly from the friends, parents, mother, brother, father. Stay the hell out of it. There will be people, parents come, those meetings, you keep doing this. there will be a confusion. A lot of those people that you might not know, you haven't been through the world. A lot of those people here now, they will get offended. They'll be offended. Don't interfere with my families. I didn't send them to school to teach whether boys or girls, change the sex life, take this and that. Teach them what they don't know, what they cannot find. You people know what you have to teach them. So it's very embarrassing to us and any parents and grandparents, the people like yourself, who have power to teach our children and grandchildren, that we can teach them, and we teach them what we want to teach them about those things. That's a good new religion. The reason I always said before, it's all because of the money. Parochial schools are not doing it, and you're doing it because you're supposed to help those kids. You're just confusing them. It's a shame. It's a shame because not the rest of the country say, why are we doing it? And I'm kind of embarrassed to be in this town and you kind of are enforcing that. Don't you realize it? And the people are afraid to object it, but there's consequences. But please do not, it's not a state law, it's not a federal law. You just think you're doing something right, but you're not. You show me a parent that you're going to tell something that some of you don't even have a kids, children or grandchildren, and you tell them how to bring up their kids. I'm reading over here how the kids have a problem to pay for the meals. That's what you got to help. But never mind about the sex life, are they boys or girls, changes, be whatever they are. This is not the schools to be taught. When there comes a time, and I said before many times, all the flowers don't bloom at the same time. Children do either. Some do before, some do later, but don't force upon them. I don't want to take more time. But I was at a council meeting, change the subject, and last Tuesday, he says over here, mayor, of course, in council meeting, authorizing convenience of the property known as the tax block 554 lot 16-02 located behind Green Street, 86 Green Street, which is the historical building now, and it will be conveyed to the property to the Woodbridge Board of Education. So that property is going to be behind the Woodbridge Middle School. My question would be, what the property is going to be used for? Does anybody know?
I mean, I don't know for sure. I would guess some sort of a parking lot behind the museum.
Well, it's a residential property. I mean, it's only part of the property. But, I mean, you're not aware of it, that mayor is actually going to subdivide the property, and part of the property is going to be donated to.
And it could be a softball field because during the construction, we had a softball field back there, so they might just be reconducting the softball field.
So when you talk about softball field, that's like a playground, right?
No, there was never a playground behind Woodbridge Middle School that I could think of.
Well, softball field, that's just during the school hours or?
Well, eventually they built the practice field back there when middle school sports came into the mix. So there was a field back there, but then when we did the addition to Woodbridge Middle School, I think that whole area got displaced, and I think they're probably going to put a field back for us.
Now, because of the residential houses around it, it's said to be accessible to the Grove Avenue, Linden Avenue, or it's going to be accessible to the Green Street?
Yeah, I don't want to keep misrepresenting, your question. I'll find out for you, and I'll let you know what it is.
I know Mayor said about his confusion between his office building, 94. I don't want to talk about it because I think it's going to benefit his.
I'll get you an answer, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Tom Harris, Fords, New Jersey. Just realized why I like to go first, because when you have to follow people like Paul, Lisa, Frank and John, there's not much left to be said. I'm trying to match their eloquency in some of the presentations, particularly in Lisa's, which was obviously well-researched and well-stated. One can only thank them for their interest in the community and the work that they're doing to better it. That said, I would like to address something a little bit different, and that's school number 14. Can you tell me what plans the school board has for 14? What will be done with it? And is it possible that you could put deed restrictions to make sure that it is never used for development of commercial or residential, that it will stay something that can benefit the community? And I'm not talking about more apartments, which we definitely don't need, even though I'm building a few right now. But that notwithstanding, I wanted to go back to the last meeting, too. I think some people may have thought I was gunning or trying to sandbag Dr. Massimino or Mr. Molnar with my question about, and I did preface it by saying, I want your opinions as to the positions you hold, not your not your personal opinions, when it came to identifying male and female genders in a clinical sense. And that question is still staying. Matter of fact, these people spoke on it, to it this evening, and I like the way that they did that, as a matter of fact. And they're not the only ones that are interested in how you define it. But at the end of the day, you came back and said, well, you're not going to offer your personal opinions. I never asked you for your personal opinions. What did come back is we are following what we're told to do from Trenton, which, by the way, is Mr. Phil Murphy, and as you may well know, he is a big communist supporter. He doesn't even acknowledge that his pay grade doesn't rise to the Bill of Rights. He said that on the Hannity show, in case you forgot it. But that's the doctrine that you follow. That said, I am old enough to remember World War I veterans, World War II veterans, and been in more VA hospitals than I would choose, including my brother, who served in Vietnam and still is alive today and doing well. But if you were back and talked to those gentlemen, they talked about the trials that preceded World War II, when they tried the Japanese and the German atrocities. How many of those defendants turned around and said, we are only just following orders? Think about that. Is that what you do at Trenton? Even though these people have eloquently spoke how kids are being harmed, but you're following orders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maris. And I kind of take a little offense of your last comment when the Nazis were following orders to exterminate a race, and we're talking about education. So I take offense to that. So. Anybody else from the public? Dr. Massimino.
Mr. Maris, I'll respond to your School 14 question. We don't have a definitive plan yet. There's still students in the school, so obviously we'd like to, the priority has been allowing them to finish their school year and then obviously facilitating a transition for them to go to School 25, which is where they will go. So at this point, we're focused on that. I'm sure you can appreciate us focusing on the end of the school year and allowing those students to enjoy their time there before we start to dig into what the plans are. But when we do have an idea of what those plans are, I'll be happy to share them.
Are there any more public comments? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Before getting a motion to adjourn, I would just like to, with the school year ending in a couple days, I would like to congratulate all our graduating seniors. Wish you all the best on wherever you go, through college, the workforce, joining the military, protecting our freedoms. To all our students, have a great summer. I'd like to thank our teaching staff for all their hard work this year. And I'd like to wish everybody a happy and safe summer. We will see you in September. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?